In this class today, we're going to be looking again at secondary sources. Did you unmute Joseph, or can you get a video on Joseph, or not yet?
I'm here.
You're there. Okay. Hello, Joseph.
Oh, well, what's up, man?
Nice to see you. Can I get a quick look?
I have the lights off, so
All right. Oh, so
can't
that.
really see it, but like, yeah.
Oh, I can see you.
Uh,
All right. Just wanted to see an outline.
all right.
All right. Nice to see you in the dark. um, So for this class, we're going to use secondary sources. We're going to be working on questions 6 and 7, and I hope you all have the questions. They're the questions that start with describe New Amsterdam. We were working on them last class. I assume you all have the questions. If you don't, put it in the chat, and Oleg or I can send you the questions again. So what we're going to do today is find the answers to those two questions. There they are. Thank you, Oleg. So you all should have these, and we're going to be looking at the last two questions today, 6 and 7, the momentous revolution and slave labor. Okay, Oleg, you can give me back the full screen with the class. And to find the answers to these two questions, we're going to be looking at Gotham, at the text, and the attachment 115A, and we're also going to be looking at 70A. And so when we do the readings and the review in class, those are the two that we'll be looking at. When you're writing, just to repeat, I know you're going to get tired of me saying this, but I'm going to say it again, and many of you are really getting it. I want your thoughts. I want your thoughts. I want what you're thinking. In addition to the examples, in addition to the quotes, in addition to giving me the source and the brackets, the citation, the next step, the big step in writing in college is to respect your intellect and respect your thoughts. And I have tremendous respect for students' thoughts. So please, please, please put that into your writing. The sources we'll be going over today is both Gotham and a fact sheet. And let's get started. Oleg, could you put page 48 from Gotham up on the screen? And we can get started reading that, and my hopefully not annoying interruptions and expanding on what we're reading. Okay, so here no, not that. It's the other, yeah. Can you make it bigger and go down to the paragraph that starts as Brazil slipped from its grasp? Let's see. It's page 48, Oleg. You're on 44. We want to go to page 48. That's 45. You got 3 more pages to go. 46. 48, yay, okay. And down at the bottom, you see that paragraph, as Brazil slipped from its grasp, move that up and make it bigger. Up, more. Okay, and can you make it bigger? Whoa, not too much. All right, can you make it bigger? Yeah, that's good. Okay, Joseph, you want to do some public reading? You want to read a sentence or two?
Sure. I'm reading from As Brazil, right?
Yeah. Have I mentioned you have a great voice?
Thank you.
Have I said that before?
No, I don't think you have.
You do. You have a great speaking voice.
Thank you.
I hope I didn't embarrass you.
As Brazil slipped from its grasp, the company instigated a momentous revolution in the Atlantic slave trade.
All right, let me just stop you right there. The key phrase here is that the company, meaning the Dutch West India Company, started a momentous revolution. And that's at the heart of question 6. What was the momentous revolution, right? So this paragraph and the next one are going to give you the information that you can use as examples in your answer. Okay, sorry to interrupt, Joseph. Go ahead.
During the 1630s and 1640s, it had imported nearly 30,000 slaves from Africa to work the Brazilian sugar plantains.
All right, Joseph.
Oh, plantations, sorry.
All right, what in that sentence struck you? Read it again to yourself. What is there anything in that sentence that struck you as like, oh, that's interesting?
Where it says they had imported nearly 30,000. Wait. Oh yeah, nearly 30,000 slaves from Africa.
Okay, underscore that. Make sure, Joseph, and anybody else, that you use that, okay? Page 48 of Gotham. It struck you that in the 1630s and 1640s, they imported 30,000 people into slavery from Africa, right, to work in Brazil. Okay, one more sentence, Joseph.
The increasing precariousness of those markets prompted the company to direct its attention elsewhere, above all to the British and French West Indies, where white indentured servants had been producing tobacco on myriad small holdings.
All right, thank you. Brian, looking at that sentence, what strikes you as interesting? It's a very long sentence. Look at that. What in that sentence did you see or hear? Read it again. That you go, oh, that's interesting.
I think for me, it's white indentured servants had been producing tobacco on myriad small holdings.
A myriad. Myriad's a fancy
Myriad.
meaning many.
Myriad. Yeah. Myriad. Yeah.
Yeah, and why did that strike you? Why did that strike you? This is very important, everybody. Why did that strike you, Brian?
Well, what does indentured servants mean?
Okay, does anybody know? I'll give the answer. If anybody knows what indentured servants means, anybody want to?
I think that's why it struck me, because I don't know what it means.
And you know what?
Isn't it like someone that's signed to a contract?
Exactly. Say it again. Brian, you can write this down. Everybody else can write this down. Tiffany, say it again.
It's someone who's signed to a contract.
And what is the contract?
It's usually like someone would have to do work for basic living necessities, I believe.
Well, let's say Brian signed a contract with you. What would it say in the contract if he became your indentured servant? What would it say in the
That he would have to work for me for a certain amount of years and like do house chores and work the fields and stuff. And then after his contract was over, he could have like the freedom to go where he would like, or sign another contract, I believe.
Perfect. Now, those taking notes, you can quote Tiffany because we don't have any other sources here. Tiffany Giron, Giron. And Tiffany, say it one more time so people taking notes can get down the definition of white indentured servants. Very important.
So it was a signed contract, which basically meant that men and women agreed to work for a certain number of years in exchange for like food, clothing, and shelter.
Perfect. Now, now RKL is going to add to that a second source. First you had Tiffany. Well, first you start with the text, right? Brian read the text. Then Tiffany explained a certain phrase. Now I'm going to add to that. The contract typically in the 1630s and 1640s was 7 years. The typical indentured servant contract was 7 years. That's very important to know. And the other thing that's very important to know, is that after the contract's over, you are free. That's big. That's very big. That's very big. And you should get it down because that is the difference between indentured servitude, indentured servant, and slavery. Who wants to add to that thought? Anybody thinking about this? Anybody want to add to what Tiffany and I have said about
So regular servants, they don't get freedom afterwards, and indentured servants play on contracts until they run up.
All right, let me just replace one word. You see me, you see me do this in your writing, so I'll do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll do it in person.
It's cool.
I'm gonna replace one word, the word regular. I'm gonna take that word regular out.
Okay.
I'm gonna put slavery in.
Okay.
And that's really important. All right. It's not light. I'm taking out the word regular. I'm going like this. I'm just taking it out. And I'm putting in the word slavery. Now say it again, Brian.
So, wait. So slavery. The slaves don't have contracts that run up, but indentured servants, they have contracts that when they come to an end, they're freed.
You got it.
Got it. Okay.
And you ready for this? This is RK, I'll add this, and this is powerful. Slavery was for life, right? This indentured contract that Tiffany was talking about is 7 years. This is very heavy. I'm going to say something very heavy. Slavery was for life, not only for you, but your children and your grandchildren. It was inherited. That's very heavy. You see it? You feel it? Ryan?
Yeah, that's crazy. What are the types of servants that were like contracted to report other runaway slaves? What was that about?
Say that question again, because I think you have two questions in one.
I remember one of my past classes, I learned about some slaves that were contracted to report runaway slaves, other runaway slaves. What were they known as?
They were known as sneaks, and they were known as someone to be distrusted by the other slaves. And if it was found out, they were in a lot of trouble. I mean, they weren't known within the group. I think the word that comes to mind is snitch.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah, but
I feel like there was a certain name or phrase for those slaves.
I don't know. You have to let me know. But
yeah, that's why the word indentured kind of rung a bell, but I don't think that was it.
Yeah, that's not it. That's not it. The major point I'm making here is to teach you the difference between being indentured, which was mostly for white people, and as Tiffany has pointed out, it was a contract for 7 years, as I added, and slavery, which was not a contract. It was like you're a table, you're a chair, you're owned by somebody. You're no longer human, and your children inherit that. Does anybody not understand what I'm saying? Anybody want to ask a question? Does anybody have a reaction to what I'm saying?
I remember in these times in which we're in right now, there will be people that would tell others, "You're my slave." And whenever I hear that, it's like, it's offensive, and it's like disrespectful to say it nowadays because we're no longer in slavery.
Christian, when you do your writing, will you please put your thoughts like that into the writing?
Sure.
It'll make your writing better because I can feel your passion.
And I remember when I heard those words, "You're my slave," it would like not just impact me, but it would also hurt me because they don't know what they're saying to other people. And what it really means when you say, "You're my slave."
And can I add something to that, Christian?
Go ahead.
That the reason it's so deep is because it's about your children and your grandchildren. It's not just about you. It means you're no longer human. It means they're basically saying, I own you as property. And I own your children and your grandchildren. You catch how deep that is? Hello?
It's like selling other people. You
Yeah.
have no value.
Well, you have value. They bought you, but you have no humanity. Your humanity has been taken away from you. You have your humanity, but it's been taken away. Okay?
Yes.
Now, in that sentence, the word, the increasing precariousness of those markets, something that's precarious can mean that it's about to fall apart, right? They're not solid. Something that's precarious is about to fall apart. And that's why the Dutch shifted their attention from Brazil to the West Indies. And they looked at the West Indies in the 1630s and 1640s, and they saw white indentured servants producing tobacco on many small farms. It's very important you understand what happens in this momentous revolution. This is the beginning. This is what's going to change. I'm going to say it in many different ways, but you should write this down. So a revolution means that something changes. And in this case, what the Dutch did is they moved from, they got thrown out of Brazil, and they had moved their attention over to the Caribbean, to the British and French islands then owned in the Caribbean, and found what existed were white indentured servants working on many small farms, right? Producing tobacco, right? They're producing tobacco and some other agricultural goods. That's what they see, and this is what they're going to change, right? The revolution will change this. So in your notes, that's what you should have down. This is what they see, and this is what exists in the 1640s. So, Carmela, you want to do some reading?
My throat actually hurts pretty bad, but
No, never mind. You rest your throat. Tiffany, unless you want to, Carmela.
I mean, I could. That's fine.
No.
I'll do it.
I don't want to be the cause of your throat to be irritated.
No, it's good. Where did we stop?
All right, where did we stop? We're looking at the screen, and you see British and French West Indies, where white indentured servants had been producing tobacco and smeared smoke. Right? And then you start on one island after another.
Where is this? Wait, hold on. My screen is like not showing. Hold on. Oh, wait. Sorry. Right here. Okay. On one island after another, company agents as well as independent Dutch merchants not only convinced the planters to adopt slave labor, but loaned them money and equipment to make the switch to sugar several times more profitable than tobacco.
So what struck you there, Carmela, in that sentence?
I love that sugar is more profitable than tobacco, because I agree.
All right. So what they're discovering and to you makes sense, right? Is that they go to these islands, right? And they see a bunch of white servants, right? And they're working tobacco fields.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, these are my words, jumping up from your interest in sugar. And they go, wait a minute, if we change this from tobacco to sugar, we're gonna make more money.
Well, I mean, everyone uses sugar and not everybody smokes tobacco.
All right, I want everybody to write this down and quote Carmela, because this is so important. All right, Carmela, give it to the class again.
They switched from tobacco to sugar because it was more profitable in the way that tobacco, not everybody smokes tobacco, but everyone uses sugar or eats sugar.
So there's more, now I'm going to add to that, there's more of a market, right? There's more
Mhm.
demand, right? And so there's more profit to be made. When you have more demand for a product, right, there's more profit to be made. Like everybody's demanding Netflix now. So Netflix is making more money, right?
Mhm.
And so what you're saying is because more people were demanding sugar than tobacco, this was a more profitable agricultural product. How'd I do?
Yep. Much better than what I said.
No, I'm adding to what you said. I'm adding. You know, Ivan, if you like jumping in on this sentence and giving me what strikes you in the sentence that Carmela just read.
Yeah, I mean, also the same thing that the demand for sugar was higher than tobacco. I have the same thought, obviously everyone uses sugar, so it makes sense that there was a bigger market for that.
Okay, I'm going to push you a little bit, Ivan. You ready? You ready to be pushed?
Sure.
Huh?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So on one island after another, okay, here's the question, Ivan. How do they convince the planters to adopt slavery and to create this plantation economy of sugar? How do they do it, Ivan? This is a very important question, and your answer is very important.
It says there that they actually helped start them up, so they actually invested in loaning them money and equipment to make the switch. So
Okay.
basically they probably showed them like profit margins. Like if you start selling sugar, you're going to make this much more and we'll cover the cost for you to switch over your services.
All right, so everybody who's taking notes, everybody who's getting ready to answer question 5 and 6, or is it 6 and 7? 6 and 7, you better write this down and you can quote Ivan. Ivan, say it again slowly for everybody. Go ahead.
Okay, so for them to convince the plantations to switch over from tobacco to sugar, they they provided them the money and the equipment to make the change, and they probably most likely showed them the amount of money they could be making by switching.
Perfect. Perfect. Anybody have any questions before we go to the next sentence? Arbaz, you want to read the next sentence by the early 1650s?
Oh yeah, sure. One sec. Let me see. Is it on the screen? It's not on the screen, right?
Yeah, it's right in the middle. I'm pointing to it. It's right in the middle. It's right after the word.
Oh, I see. By the early 1650s, sugar was well on its way to becoming the principal crop of the Caribbean. Large plantations were emerging as the basic unit of production, and the company was funneling tens of thousands of African slaves every year into the region.
Stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
What's your reaction to that sentence? What got to your bones in that sentence?
Yeah, it's basically, you would say, this is the beginnings of slavery in terms of large plantations, I would say, in the 1600s. So
Perfect.
this is pretty much the beginning, I would say.
Perfect. Perfect. Again, if you're writing it down, which you should be, and you're taking notes about the importance of that sentence, then Arbaz, read it again.
Sure. By the early 16...
Say it again in your words, I mean.
Oh, okay. I would say this would be the beginning of slavery for the and plantations, I would say. Yeah. So this is the beginning of slavery and plantations for the I'm not sure which merchants. What would you say? This is for European based or?
Yeah, these are the Dutch. These are these are the same people running New Amsterdam. This is the same company running New Amsterdam. This is how we're going to tie it back to New York. I mean, we're going to tie it back, but what you're saying is so important because this is where it all begins. I'll add something to it. This is the revolution. This is the momentous revolution. This is the beginning. Otherwise, what am I saying? Why am I so involved in this? Why do I find it as a historian so important? What am I saying here? What have you and I discovered by this sentence?
I mean, you could say that this is the first company that started funneling large amount of slaves into the region. So I mean, you could also put that as well.
And,
So
and everything we live with today kind of emerges out of this. I mean, it seems so, we're reading it, we're saying, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But if you think about the impact that this has on our lives today, this is the beginning. This is how it happens. This is why it happens. Arbaz, what am I talking about? Sorry to put you on the spot.
could you give me a hint? I would say this starts a lot of things. That's why I'm not sure which specifically are you referring to.
Well, I'm talking about race. I'm talking about racism. I'm talking about slavery. I'm talking about the treatment of Black people. I'm
Oh
talking,
yeah. Mhm.
I'm talking about replacing white indentured farmers with Black slaves. How does that ripple into our lives today in New York?
Black Lives Matter, I would say, and then the protests as well.
Yeah.
It's still, yeah, we're still fighting today. I would say there's no.
That's perfect. This is the beginning of all of this. Does anybody want to jump in on this and say what their reaction is to what I'm saying? To what our boss?
Professor,
Yes.
I would say that this is the beginning of the fight for the. I'm saying this in general.
What in general?
For the Black people to have more rights and more freedom.
I'm just going to take one word, Christian, and replace it. You ready?
Ready.
Instead of the word fight, I'm going to remove it and put in the word problem. So this is the beginning of the problem. This is the beginning of the dilemma. This is the beginning of the issue. This is the beginning of the discrimination and the exploitation that we live with today, and thus the fight. You follow how I changed it?
Yes.
All right, write it down, because you'll forget. Write it down. Narissa, you there? You want to jump in and do a little reading?
Yes, Professor, sure.
All right, by the early 1650s.
Okay. By the early 1650s, sugar was well on its way to becoming the principal crop of the Caribbean. Large plantations were emerging as the basic unit of production, and the company was funneling tens of thousands of African slaves every year into the region.
Go ahead.
On Barbados, richest of the new sugar colonies, the Black population soared from a few thousand to better than 32,000 by the 1670s. Dutch slavers had even started probing Virginia and Maryland, and there was good reason to believe that cheapsake planters, specific planters would soon follow their West Indian counterparts in adopting slavery.
So Narissa, where in what you just read got to your heart, got to your soul, that you saw in that phrase or something that you found interesting?
Okay, what got to me was when it said by the early 1650s, sugar was well on its way to becoming the principal crop of the Caribbean. Well, I'm from Guyana. It's a country in the Caribbean as well. And I know that's so true because to this day, sugar is still our primary crop.
All right, can you say that again so students taking notes can quote you? You ready, everybody? Narissa? Is it Ramphal or Rampal?
Ramphal.
Rampal. All right, Narissa, say it again, because you're taking this text, this history, and making it your own, which is what I want you to do. Go ahead.
So to this day, sugar is still the primary crop for the country of Guyana, which is also in the Caribbean. And we also have like a public holiday known as Freedom Day, which represents the freedom of slavery. And so it's like on that specific day, the African people would celebrate their freedom from slavery, from working on the sugar plantations.
Is it in June?
No, it's in August. It's August the 1st.
And is it still something that, even though you're living here, that you and your family celebrate?
Yeah, it's still something that we don't celebrate it because we're Indians. There is still like racialness in our country as well. Like the Indians are divided, but it's still celebrated every year on August the 1st, Freedom Day.
And there is a, sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm going to push you a little bit.
Mm.
And what's your reaction? This is not about Guyana, this is about Barbados. What's your reaction to that sentence about the Barbados where it says that the Black population on the Barbados soared from a few thousand to better than 32,000 by the 1670s? What's your reaction to that? What do you think of that sentence? What do you think of that? Hello?
I would say the same thing, that was the beginning of slavery, because the numbers keep rising and they keep bringing more workers to work for them. Maybe because they see that like Black people were working harder,
And they thought that it was be more profitable.
more profitable for them. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Atta, do you have a reaction to this very simple but powerful statement that on Barbados from 1650 to 1670, the Black population, because of the sugar, the Black population soars from a few thousand to 32,000. Do you ever, any kind of takeaway on that? Any reaction, anything in your soul that's responding to that?
How can you hear me?
What?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, my headphones are bad today. Is my voice going through?
I can't hear you.
See the station. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So actually, one of my old professors, not from LaGuardia, from another college, his family was from Barbados, and in their ancestors, they were actually slaves, like the first slaves that came here. And he would always talk about how even to this day, there is some residual hatred that they had, but then kind of some of the older generations, like the grandparents or the great-grandparents, he would tell stories that they had some sort of hatred, but at the same time, they accepted that what happened, and everything changed for the better. But now that he sees the whole situation with Black Lives Matter and the whole situation with the protests and the BLM issues, they say that perhaps things haven't changed and it just took another turn, but the issues of slavery or issues of neglecting the Black community is still very much prevalent to this day.
And it's quite powerful to think that this is something that's been in existence since the 1670s, right? I mean,
Yep.
We're talking about over 300 years, 330, 340 years. Francesca, are you there? I want to ask you a question. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. When you think of the islands on the West Indies, when you think of Barbados, for example, do you think of it as a white population or a Black population?
Black population.
All right, so here's what I'm going to say to you and everybody in the class, that we all think of the West Indies when you think of Barbados, and you think of the islands in the West Indies, you think of them as Black and as mostly Black population. What we're learning here today, and you can write this down, is they were once white. I'll say it again. They were once white, and they become Black because of what you're reading here, because of the investment that the Dutch West India Company made in sugar, that they went to these islands, found a white population producing agricultural goods like tobacco on small farms, and through lending them money, through financing the equipment, brought about a momentous revolution and changed all of those islands from white to Black. And they did it by bringing in thousands and thousands and thousands of slaves to the islands and creating big sugar plantations, so that by the end of the 1600s, and what we know and what you all live with today is thinking those islands were always Black, but they weren't. They become majority Black population because of profit, because of business, because of investment by the Dutch, because of bringing in slaves from Africa, bringing in thousands and thousands of people to work the sugar plantations. That's why we live with what we live with today. It all starts right here.
Professor,
Yes.
so let's say that most of the things we have today, as in foods and properties, are thanks to the slaves.
I totally agree. I'm just going to take one word. This is what I do. I'm going to take the word thanks and take it out of your sentence and put in because of.
Okay.
Okay. And so, and I'm going to add to it because what you said is so important, Christian. So say it again so people can write it down. Say it again.
So most of the things that we have today is because of the slaves.
Yes. And if you wrote that down, quote Christian, and now RKL is going to add to it.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to add to it. I would argue passionately that the reason why the United States is so wealthy, and the reason why I'll give you more detail on this. The reason why New York is such a wealthy town is because of slavery. I'm going to give you more detail on it, but I'm adding to what Christian said. And that's why we're reading about this in a course on New York City.
Professor, I have a question.
Tiffany, go ahead.
So in the last sentence of the paragraph, it states that Chesapeake planters would soon follow their West Indian counterparts in adopting slavery. So does that mean that prior to Europeans adopting slavery, there was already slavery taking place in the West Indian countries?
Say it again. Does that mean what?
Does that mean that prior to the Dutch adopting slavery, that the West Indians were already they were already practicing some form of slavery?
And I'm going to just make a little correction on that. And what they were practicing was indentured servants.
Oh, okay.
You see, the system they had was indentured servants. And what the Dutch do, and the British do this too, but we're looking at the Dutch right now, is they say, hey, you can make more money if you switch from tobacco to sugar, getting back to what Carmela was saying, that there's more of a market and you make more money. And what Ivan, I think, read was, we'll help you finance it. We're going to give you money. We're going to lend you money. We're going to lend you money we're going to give you loans so you can increase your land and you can buy the slaves and you can get the equipment. But what's on the other side of the loan in your experience of borrowing money? What's the catch in taking that money? Yeah.
Interest.
Right. They now own you. They now own you. You think, oh, they lent me this money and I'm going to buy equipment and I'm going to have this great plantation. But they own you now. You are in the system. You've been bought. And now slavery is going to be what you have to do. And plantation sugar is what you're going to have to do. Questions? Anybody have questions on what I'm saying here?
But how are we their property?
That's such a great question. How did slavery work? Meaning, how was it that people became property? Is that the question?
Yes.
It's a very deep question. And I'm going to try and give you a short answer because a longer answer would take a whole course. Because of power, because slave traders went to Africa, captured thousands and thousands of people, put them in chains, put them on a boat, brought them over, and because they were in chains, and because of guns, and because of whips, and because of the power relationship, they were forced into being slaves and hated every minute of it, and tried to escape, and tried to get freedom. There was no happiness in any of their lives. But because of chains, because of guns, because of whips, because of the power relationship, the slave owners owned you. And if you tried to escape, where were you going to go? How'd I do? Christian,
Yes.
did I answer your question?
Yes.
All right, it's powerful. You're asking a very powerful question. Okay, now let's bring all this back to New Amsterdam. Jason, are you there?
Yeah.
All right, you want to do a little reading? It was in this context.
Okay. I got you.
Go ahead.
It was in this context that it occurred to Stuyvesant and Company strategists that New Amsterdam would make a convenient. I can't read that.
Hold on, Jason.
What does it say, Professor? Entrepot? Entrepot?
Wait, Jason, hold on a minute. Somebody's got a child or somebody in the background. Can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
Somebody's got, that's cute though. I like it. But okay, Jason, start again. It was in this context.
Okay. It was in this context that it occurred to Stuyvesant and Company strategists that New Amsterdam would make a convenient entrepot.
Yeah, entrepot. It's
Okay.
French.
Entrepot for the slave trade in North America
It means
and a source of vital supplies for the plantation economics, I think. I
economy.
can't see it. It's really hard to see it. And then developing to the south. It might also be profitable to establish a local market for slaves, perhaps even bring them directly from Angola, thus does it say bolstering? Bolstering New Amsterdam's labor force, hastening the reoccupation of its hinterlands, and securing the entire colony against encroachment from.
We have to go to the next page. Oleg, can we go to the next page? Yeah, go down, go down, go down. Down, down, down. Okay, can you see that, Jason?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
New England. Stuyvesant was one of the new policy's most ardent
Strongest.
supporters. His tour of duty on Curacao coincided with the construction there of vast pens capable of holding thousands of slaves at a time. And it was he who suggested the administrative
unification
of, how you say that again? Curacao with New Netherlands.
So from what you just read, what's your takeaway? What's your reaction? What's your summary statement from what you just read? How does all this come back to New York? What does Stuyvesant see in the increasing slave population of the West Indies? What does he try?
Can I read the previous page again?
Yeah. Do you have it, or do you want us to go back to the previous page?
Do I have it?
You know, Ola, go back to the previous page. It was in this context. Yeah, let's get to the bottom. Yeah, there. Okay, you're back, Jason. You see it?
Yes.
So here's my question, Jason. How does all of this, in this paragraph, it's taking all this information and bringing it back to New Amsterdam. Give us the answer. How does Stuyvesant see it as a connection to New Amsterdam? All of these slaves being brought to the West Indies. When you look at a map, New York's not in the West Indies, and yet Stuyvesant does something that places New Amsterdam strategically in the middle of all of this.
Wait, what's an entrepot?
Yeah, entrepot. You're so smart. You got the key word. That is the key word. It's the doorway. It's the convenient entranceway. Entrepot is the entranceway, the doorway through which all this will travel.
Yeah, I was just about to say, he made New Amsterdam. It said New Amsterdam would be a convenient entrepot for the slave trade in North America. And then like later on, it just says, and the source of vital supplies for the plantation economies developing to the south. So like it was really beneficial for not only us.
Give us yours, but you're at the heart of the answer. Give us what are you learning from this?
So slaves were also really beneficial for the economy, like money wise, because it brought in money for New Amsterdam and it helped build the South in North America. And because of that, both profited and yeah.
And what does Stuyvesant do? What does he do to put New Amsterdam in the middle of all this? He does two things, and they're both in that sentence. Can you tease it out, or should I just say it?
Wait, I want to try to figure this out.
Good for you. Good for you. It's all in that entrepot word.
Really? So first, I think they would make New Amsterdam an entrepot. Would that be one?
Yeah, it's a difficult word, but it's French and it's very important. I mean, he makes New Amsterdam the doorway for slavery. And what's not said, and what I'll add to it, is that all of these slaves, many of these slaves, he reroutes the ships, and the slave trade has to come through New Amsterdam. The slaves are bought and sold and are then brought down to the Barbados. It's amazing what he does. He reroutes the slave trade. And what happened shouldn't have happened. But this entrepot, this doorway to slavery, New Amsterdam becomes the doorway. And the boats go from Africa to New Amsterdam. And then the slave trade occurs in New Amsterdam and then down to the Barbados. And what's the other piece? This phrase, source of vital supplies. What does that mean? What does that mean?
The slaves were really important for the plantations because the plantations wouldn't be possible without the slaves.
Right. And what Stuyvesant figures out is that he's going to make, and you can write this down, he's going to make New Amsterdam the Costco for slavery. He's going to make New Amsterdam the grocery store for slavery. He's going to make New Amsterdam the Amazon for slavery. In other words, and I'm going to say it slowly because it's very important. If you're spending all your time and all your land in Barbados with a sugar plantation, or Guyana with a sugar plantation, then you're not growing the food you need to feed the slaves, right? You don't have the farm implements so that they can do the farming. And Stuyvesant sets up New Amsterdam as the supplier of all the needs for slavery. And it is a tremendous boon to New Amsterdam in terms of sales. New Amsterdam becomes the Amazon, the place from which all vital supplies are bought for slavery. And if you understand that, you can understand why this was such a boom to the New Amsterdam economy, because everything you needed to run your plantation, you bought from New Amsterdam. That's amazing that he did that. Questions? Questions, questions.
Wait, I have a question. So you could just go to New Amsterdam and buy a slave, like that's how it worked back then?
Yes, yes, there were auctions, like you sell cattle.
And another question, what I forgot to ask this before. I forgot what it's called in the indefinite or something slave. What did they get paid more than regular slaves? Or
Well, that's such a great question. Did indentured servants get paid more? I would say it was not just a matter of payment, but it was a matter of attitude. That if you were a slave, you were owned for life, and the attitude towards you was you were property. If you were an indentured servant, you had a 7-year contract, you got room and board, and then the relationship was so different because in 7 years you're gone. So it's more not a matter of payment, it's more a matter of the personal relationship that evolves.
makes
So I'd like
sense.
everybody to look at questions 6 and 7. Oleg, you want to put that up on the shared screen because we're running out of time. And does anybody feel they can't answer questions 6 and 7? Oleg, you there? Oh, no, I guess he's not. Does everybody?
I'm here.
I want the question 6 and 7 up on the shared screen.
6 and 7.
Yeah, put them up on the shared screen, please.
Okay, 1 second. Hold on.
Well, we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, I know. It's a problem.
All right, everybody in the class, you probably have questions 6 and 7 that I've sent to you. Is anybody, there it is. All right, make it bigger and go down to 6 and 7. And mute yourself. I think you have a radio in the background.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you. All right, does anybody feel they can't answer questions 6 and 7?
Professor,
Yeah.
on my copy, it only goes up to question 6.
All right, we'll send you, I'm going to send you, put it in the chat and Oleg and I will send you another copy. Does everybody feel comfortable now in terms of the homework that's due a week from Monday in answering questions 1 through 7? Anybody have any questions on any of the questions?
So according to the information that we got today, we can answer all these 7 questions, correct?
Correct. Does anybody feel that they have problems with any of these questions? Everybody
Professor,
good?
we only have to answer number 6 and 7 for homework, right?
No, homework is all 7. And do a week. You have to answer all 7 questions, do a week from Monday.
Got it.
You got it?
Professor, which PDF is Restless City?
Oleg, which PDF is Restless City? Do you know? I think it's
115.
115A.
Yeah,
I thought 115 was Gotham.
Oleg, you got an answer for that?
I'm not sure. 115. Hold on. 115A. It's what we read today.
Sir, I think 126A is Restless City.
Yes.
126A. Hold on. Let me.
I just see it here. 126A is Restless City.
Okay, thank you.
Got it? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions on the questions? The homework is questions 1 through 7, a week from Monday. If you think of something later, send me an email. I'm available all the time to answer your questions. Everybody enjoy your spring break. And I'll see you on that Tuesday after the holiday. Okay?
Okay, Professor.